looking at my video that I did about Rocky's leg and about the mentality in Canada, and I realized there's a kind of a gap there because the camera cut me off, and I had to start another video to finish what I was saying. And it may have caused some confusion because I didn't tell the whole story. Where I left off and where I started again were different. Anyway, I'll give you a little background first. Recently, there was a huge drug bust out in Vancouver, British Columbia. Not in Vancouver, but in British Columbia. There's a big drug bust. A drug house, a place where they were producing drugs, a place where the Mexican cartels were producing drugs in British Columbia, got raided by the RCMP. 2 men who are members of a Mexican drug cartel were arrested. Known members of a Mexican drug cartel. They were arrested, and then they were later released without charges. Now, they found enough poison in that house to kill millions of people. I believe what they said is enough poison to kill every person in Canada twice. But for the most part, those drugs weren't destined for the streets of Canada. They weren't destined for Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver and Winnipeg and Calgary. They were destined to go across the line into the United States and poison American citizens. See, here's what's happened. Trump wasted no time sealing up the U.S.-Mexico border. One of the first things he did after he was sworn in. Now the cartels are finding it hard to move their stuff across. These Mexican cartels, they were shooting at U.S. Border Patrol with 50 caliber rounds. These are anti-tank rounds that they were shooting at people driving pickup trucks with. And the Border Patrol, they weren't allowed to fire back. Under orders of the Biden regime, they weren't allowed to fire back. Not even in self-defense, they weren't allowed to. They were coming across with impunity and bringing all their crap with them, all their dope and everything, to poison people. They were bringing that with them. When Trump came in, he shut it down. They're unable now to move their product, we'll say, or at least to move it very easily. I mean, they may still be getting a little bit in here and there, but it's tough, They're not able to do it the way they were able to do it. The thing is, if they move into the United States and they start producing the stuff there, the penalties in the United States, if you get caught running that sort of a lab out of a house or whatever, are really severe. I mean, they'll put you away. You won't see the light of day for a long time. It's like that guy on television there, Dr. Phil McGraw, says, they won't put you in the jail, they'll put you under the jail. And you won't be getting out. That's how that works anyway. But in Canada, the penalties are practically non-existent. So see, the cost of doing business is low in Canada. And the border's like a sieve. There's nothing. I mean, you can just step across the line. You can walk from Alberta into Montana, and you can do that. It's like it's easy. It's really easy to walk from Canada into the United States. And this is the reason now that we're facing these tariffs. Because what's happened is, okay, we had this house that was raided in British Columbia. Enough poison in it to kill every person in Canada twice. Millions of people. Enough poison to kill millions of people. Most of it destined for the U.S. market. Most of it going to cross the U.S.-Canada border. Now, what Trump has said is, clean up your act, secure your border. We don't want any more of that shit coming across. We got enough of it here. We got enough of our own to deal with. We don't need yours too. So, you want to have the Mexican drug cartel guys up there, fill your boots. But don't cause us any trouble. Secure your border. Keep that crap on your side. And you do what you want with your Mexican drug cartel guys, Put them in jail or don't. We don't care. But we don't want the end product coming across your border into our country. All perfectly reasonable. All perfectly reasonable things to say. Plus, now that the Mexican border has been shut down, effectively, the Canadian border is wide open. Where are all these people that want to go in illegally going to go now? He's trying to get rid of all these illegal immigrants that they already have. He doesn't want any more. That's why he's closed the Mexican border. To stem the tide of illegals and to stem the tide of drugs. And so now Canada is set to become a problem. Because we have this stupid, inept government. This completely stupid, inept, globalist government. And so what's happened is he said, look, clean up your act or we're putting tariffs on all your goods. I'm not seeing the problem. Just start watching the border better, Start putting actual penalties against these people that are in that trade that will make a difference. I'm not talking about some poor son of a bitch who's got an addiction and you find him with a little bit of stuff on him for his own use. That's a guy who's got a sickness. We don't need to brutalize that fellow in the penitentiary system. That would be pointless. I'm not talking about doing that. But these ones who are making millions and billions of dollars every year off the trade, these ones that are producing the stuff, that are running these labs and everything, these cartel members, yeah, put them away, throw them in a hole somewhere, and don't let them out for a good long time. Make sure that they go in there young and healthy and virile, and if they ever come out at all, they come out as broken down old men. And I guarantee you, once the cost of business goes that high, it'll stop. They won't be doing that up here anymore. We don't want them doing it up here. Nobody in their right mind wants that to be going on. We don't want it. I mean, I can tell you I don't want it. And I don't want Canada to become the new Mexico. I don't want Canada to become the big drug source for the U.S. market. And the fact of the matter is, that's what's happening now. And these drug cartels, they don't waste any time because time is money. Every day they're not working, they're not earning. That's no good. So what do? They say, okay, we can't go across Mexico anymore. Canada has drug laws that are a joke. And so what we'll do is we will go up there. We'll make the dope up there. We'll ship it across that sieve of a border they've got, that porous border, into the U.S. market where we can make money. Well, Trump doesn't want that. Frankly, I don't want it either. I think it's a travesty that we're even allowing as a country for us to become that. And so, yeah, look, shut them down. Show them no mercy. They won't show you any mercy. You cross a Mexican drug cartel and see where you end up. They won't show you any mercy. You know, don't show them any. Put them in a friggin' hole somewhere and let them rot there for decades if they get caught doing that stuff on our soil. You know, don't allow Canada to become the new drug pipeline into the United States, which is happening now. That is starting to happen. Anyway, I brought all this up in my discussions with these wingnuts on a Facebook page today, and I was basically told if you don't like how things are in Canada, then you can immigrate. You can leave. Go live somewhere else if you think it's so bad here. Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to leave everything I'm familiar with and my loved ones and my family, my friends, everything else to go live in some other country and leave my country to a bunch of reprobates, you know, and like that. I was told also to shut my mouth. Somebody actually told me that I need to shut my mouth because it's none of my business what goes on here. I'm a Canadian citizen. It is my business what happens here. Just like if whatever country you people that are listening to me are from, wherever you're at, whether you're Australian or Canadian. I know we have Australians. I know we've got Canadians. I know we've got Americans. We got people from all over the world on here. I don't even know where all of you come from, but I know you come from far and wide. What goes on in your country is your business. And for anybody to tell you, well, you're expressing a point of view I disagree with, and therefore you need to shut up and it's none of your business, that's just ignorant. Look, if they support all this, if they think it's a great thing that we become a sanctuary for Mexican drug cartels, and we become a big pipeline for dope into the United States, and then they think that it's perfectly reasonable to blame the United States for putting sanctions against us for doing that, you know, look at all the additional trouble we're going to cause them if that's what we become. They have every right to be concerned. You know, it's like this. Look, and this is another thing, too, that I get all the time, though, is other countries have big problems, therefore Canada doesn't have problems. You can't criticize Canada because other countries are bad. Well, I'm not saying other countries are good. I know the kind of world I'm living in. And in fact, as somebody who's a believer in God and a believer in the Bible, I understand that we're living in a fallen world. So I'm aware that the whole place is corrupted and fallen. And that no matter where you go, there's going to be issues, and that's just how it is. And we're never going to make it perfect. Doesn't matter where you are or what you do, it's never going to be perfect. But to sit back complacently and say, well, everything's great, it's perfect, and anybody who criticizes is in the wrong. And, you know, if this other country's mad at us, well, for what we're doing, well, they're in the wrong. Even though what we're doing affects them, it doesn't matter. They're in the wrong for saying anything. Here's the thing. This mentality of, you know, we're not so bad because others are worse is a dumb mentality. I made the example with one woman that was on there telling me that I needed to shut up. And I said, okay, look, it's like this. This is the Canadian mentality. It's like we say that guy who beats his wife isn't such a bad guy because, after all, some men murder their wives. He doesn't murder his wife, he just beats her up. Therefore, he's a good guy. That's the Canadian mentality. Canada is the guy that beats his wife but doesn't murder her, therefore there's nothing wrong with Canada. Don't criticize Canada. And she said, well, that was a horrible example because you mentioned domestic abuse. So I said, okay, we can make it another thing if you want. The same thing will apply. We can come up with any number of scenarios to make the same point. If you find the domestic abuse scenario offensive, then we can come up with something else. But the point stands, and I said, look, it's like this. If your neighbor has a garbage dump, your next door neighbor has a dump in his backyard. He doesn't put his garbage out by the curb like everybody else does every week. He just throws his garbage out in his backyard, and he's now got a garbage dump back there. And it stinks, and it's attracting flies, and it's attracting rats. And the rats are now getting into your house, and you can't go out in your backyard because the stink and the swarms of flies drive you back into the house. So you now don't have the enjoyment of your property, plus your house is crawling with vermin because of what the guy next door is doing. Well, you have every right to complain. You have every right to go over there and knock on his door and say, look, I understand that this is your house and that's your backyard and you can do what you want on your own property. I respect that. However, your garbage dump is causing issues. I'm having issues now because of your garbage dump. It's unhealthy. It's depriving me of the enjoyment of my property. And I've now got vermin in my house because of it. And so I'm going to tell you that you need to clean up your act. See, that's what the U.S. government is doing with Canada right now. But to take it to another level, to illustrate what I was talking about before with the Canadian mentality, what do? We say, well, very self-righteously, we say, well, isn't it terrible that that guy's got a garbage dump in his backyard? Thank God we're not like him. And we've got a garbage dump in our backyard too, but it's smaller. Our garbage pile hasn't grown to the height that his garbage pile has grown to. He's got a 12-foot high pile of garbage in his backyard. We've got a 5-foot high pile of garbage in ours, and therefore we say our garbage pile is not an issue. That's what we do here. And we're very self-righteous about it. Jesus, one time, he made kind of a funny analogy. But what he said is, before you criticize your neighbor for having a splinter in his eye, take the log out of your own eye. Well, right now we got a log in our eye in this country. And we're coming in for some criticism, and we deserve it because we've allowed it to get to this point. Now, you can be damn sure that meth lab that was busted in British Columbia, that methamphetamine production facility, that's the tip of the iceberg. There'll be a lot more that we don't know about yet. And the thing is, those two guys that were arrested and then let go, those Mexican cartel guys, guess what they're doing today? They're making meth. You can be sure of it. Why wouldn't they be? If I was them, I would be. I'd be making meth and having a great old laugh, These stupid Canadians. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, we'll stay here. This is great, We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to poison a lot of people, but we don't care because we're going to make a lot of money. And the Canadian government's going to let us do it. That's the thing. You see, this is the thing. So there's that. Plus, again, I've talked about this in previous videos, all the stuff with homosexuality and transsexual stuff, and pedophiles hiding behind transsexual stuff. I had a woman on there today tell me, well, a 50-year-old man has always been able to walk into a woman's washroom. It's not like they're guarded or anything. Well, yes, that's true. But we didn't encourage it. And back in the day, if a 50-year-old man did that, he'd be putting himself in some danger by doing that. You know, he might really want to think twice about doing that. And he certainly wouldn't be upheld and protected by the government when he did it, and encouraged by the government when he did it, like now. And what I said to her is, well, no, I said, I'm aware that the public washrooms are not guarded, but I said it should not be encouraged by the government to do that. And not only that, but maybe with the current state of things in this country, they should be guarded. Maybe they should be. Right now, I'll tell you something. If you're a man and you have a little girl or a girlfriend, let's say you have a girlfriend or a wife, and she goes into the public restroom, if you stand outside that door and you interfere with another man who wants to go in there, one of you is going to jail, and it's going to be you. That's how it is in this country right now. You know, and that's what I object to. So I can tell you, when my young niece was small in Ottawa, whenever we were out in public, I mean, obviously I didn't go into the ladies' room with her if she needed to use the facilities, but I would go and I'd stand outside the door. And I remember one time she went into the ladies' room. It was at a movie theater. I took her to see a movie, and she was forever coming out. And there was a woman going in, and I asked the woman, would you mind terribly? I said, I hate to trouble you, but I said, my young niece has been in there quite a while, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm concerned. I said, if you see a little girl in there, you know, a really pretty little girl with auburn hair, about 6 years old, when I described what she was wearing, I said, would you please find out for me what's going on? Because I said, I'm kind of worried, you know. And so she said she would. She came out a few minutes later and she said, your niece is fine, but she's afraid to go home. Well, I found out later that one of her older cousins had been bullying her and was mad that she had got to see this movie and like that. And she was afraid to go home anyway. That's what it was. So she was trying to hide in the washroom. She eventually came out, and she was afraid to go home. That's what it was. But, you know, kids, they be that way sometimes. But the bottom line is, if a man had tried to go in there when she was there, he'd have had to kill me first. I'll tell you that right now. Now, back then, we still had a little bit of common sense. And so, not much, mind you, but more than we got now. And so the law would probably uphold me in doing whatever I needed to do to prevent that man from going in there where my young niece was. You know, I mean, my thing would have been, I would have got in front of him and I would have said, hey, buddy, this is the ladies' room. The men's room is that way. It's over there. You know, that's what I would have done. And if he wanted to argue the point, well, that wouldn't have went well. But at that time, the law might have upheld me in that. Nowadays, that would be a hate crime. For me to do that, that would be a hate crime. I don't care. I'd do it anyway. But it would now be considered a hate crime. That's the atmosphere we're living in. That's what I'm complaining about. And I got them on there saying, well, you're whining and complaining, and if it's so bad, why don't you go elsewhere? And we don't want to hear from you, and you're a vile bigot, and on like that. And it's like, look, you idiots, This country is in the state it's in because of people like you. You know, that's the bottom line. People like you and cowards who are afraid to stand up to people like you. That's why we're in this mess. We need to stop focusing on stupid stuff. We need to be more concerned about a child's right not to be interfered with than some pervert's right to have naked time with them in the change room or whatever. We need to be more focused on common sense, decent things than on this corruption that we've decided we want. Well, I mean, I haven't decided I want it, but there are others who also haven't decided they want it. But in general, that's what this country has become. Anyway, that's it. I started out just wanting to clarify what I was talking about with this house where the two guys were found and they got arrested and then released without charge, without enough poison in it to kill literally millions of people. You know, imagine that too. Enough poison in there to kill millions of people. This is a country where you can't own a gun. Really, it's very difficult to. I mean, there are people who are hunters and farmers who have them, but it's very difficult. And they're doing everything they can to make it even harder to have a gun. And you know, a gun, you get caught with a gun that you're not authorized to have in this country, and you go to jail for a long time. Yet these guys get caught with enough poison to kill millions of people. And they're back out on the street within hours. Tell me that makes sense if you can. Anyway, that's it. Rocky's having a sleep there on a more pleasant note. There he is. I've got a bit of a head cold, as you can probably tell. This winter has been pretty brutal. We're getting through it, though, and there's not much longer. Spring is coming. We just got to get through whatever the heck this is. This is wild. This is like the old-fashioned winters I remember when I was young. Only we don't have as much snow. We used to get a lot more snow. But otherwise, yeah, it's like it. It's like those winters. All right. Not as much snow is all. We'll see you later.